So welcome anybody. If you've gotten here, we're almost ready to go live. I have Hadley Hornig here. We're going to talk about hard money in real estate investing. You might want to make sure your chat box is on so that you can see the comments. That's for you, Hadley.
Okay.
Okay, good. Somebody's here and they're saying it works. We've got some participants. Welcome everybody today.
Welcome.
Yeah. And I'll get started. So first, hi everybody. And I interview expert speakers and leaders in real estate investing nationally. And you can ask questions and participate from anywhere. And the truth is, you don't need a ton of money or knowledge to get started as a real estate investor. You just need to know the right formulas, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Like, you got to get some money too, and maybe if you don't have it, you might use hard money. And you need to follow a system to be a smart investor. So I'm LeAnn Riley, broker and real estate coach, and I lead the Encore investment team of realtors in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. And I built a multi-million-dollar portfolio in residential, multifamily, condo development, commercial, and vacation properties. And as a national coach and trainer, I help ambitious people build wealth as real estate investors with my proven profit formula coaching program. And I provide free education like what we're having today, where I invite these experts and we're going to learn tips and tools and tricks on the latest in real estate investing. And, you know, real estate investing changes, doesn't it, Hadley, all the time?
All the time.
All the time. And we are in a robust market. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And also remember to check out my YouTube channel because all of these interviews are on there. And it's just under LeAnn Riley. So today we're here for how hard money works for real estate investors. And that is a question I get all the time. So we've got Hadley on here who can explain it. And one thing I'll read my little sentence for those of you who are here about hard money loans help investors who need quick and easy money. I don't know if it's easy though. We'll talk about that. To get their deals done fast and efficiently. That is true. It's fast and efficient, whether that's flipping or developing, but I bet there's maybe some other uses we'll talk about. So let me introduce our guest today, Hadley Hornig, and he is the account manager at Renovo Capital. And that's a financial money firm who specializes with real estate investors. And Hadley has always been drawn to real estate investing through hands-on and studying. And he's going to tell us about Renovo, but right now I'm reading his bio, guys. He helps over 50 active investors get the financing they need for flips and new construction. And he is passionate about helping your business grow. And as a real estate investor, it is always a good idea to have a relationship with a hard money guy, because who knows when the right deal comes along and you might be short on the cash at that moment.
Yes.
But then you can shore it all up and finance it and all that and pay him back, right?
Yes.
And people don't really think of that until they need it. And then it's too late to go get the relationship. Get the relationship first, folks. So I'm introducing you to Hadley. One more thing he says. He's a self-proclaimed awesome husband. That's good to hear, self-proclaimed. And a proud puppy dad. What do you have for a puppy?
I have a mini golden doodle. She's only 30 pounds and she is a small ball of energy, let me tell you.
Yep. So we're really glad to have you today as our guest. And the other thing I always share is, how did I meet our speaker? And actually, I'm just meeting Hadley just like you guys are, but I know his boss, okay? So I met David Green, who owns Renovo Capital, and I met him in a mastermind group of real estate investors. and it was an invitation only group. And I was really proud to be the token woman in a room full of smart investment folks. And I have sent many people over to Renovo to discuss their hard money needs, and particularly rehabbers who they needed to get the deal done. But like I said, you got to line this stuff up first. It can't all happen in an instant. So, Hadley, give us a little bit of background about what led you to real estate in the first place.
Sure. So my grandfather, Don Hornig, became a multifamily real estate investor in the 1960s, right here in Minneapolis. And since then, he has taken advantage of a little thing called the 1031 exchange, and has allowed him to grow and grow and grow that business. During which time, I've also seen my dad take the fruits of his labor and also be able to manifest that himself with a real estate portfolio. And because I've seen kind of what occurs, I've luckily seen firsthand what type of passive income and kind of what the owner's equity can create through that type of buy and hold mentality. I've just been a part of it ever since. I've read books when I was in my early, when I was a teenager and into my 20s, figuring that out. Started buying and investing in real estate about 10 years ago. And so I've always kind of been plugged in and very passionate about real estate. And I'm just glad that I finally got a job in the industry. I just feel very thrilled that I'm actually part of this and happy to help people that are looking to try and invest as well.
That's a cool story because, my children grew up hearing real estate around the dinner table and being hauled to the rehabs and all of that. And it's amazing how much education you pick up when you grow up in a family. And, the Hornig name is well known around Minneapolis and St. Paul, just so you know. Yeah, I've sold properties to them.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think my dad, instead of teaching me our home phone number, the first thing I learned was 1031. I think that was the first number that I learned, is the 31.
There you go. Okay, one more thing before we get going. This helps us figure out who's on the call. So I'm going to take a really quick poll. It just takes a second here. We want to see who's on the call. So here comes the poll. I think you guys can see it. Somebody say yes. Can you see it? Can you see it, Hadley? Yeah, they're voting already. Good. What you're voting on is what kind of real estate investing interests you. We want to see who's here. We got some people who are starting, some buy and holds. Oh, house hackers, what that is where you move into that first property.
Yeah, I'm actually doing it right now.
Are you house hacking?
I am. I'm living in the first floor of my duplex in East Minneapolis.
There you go. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to end the poll now. So quick, get your vote in. I see one more coming. There we go. It switched. Now I'm going to share the results. And it looks like the winner. Okay, can you see the results?
Yes, I can.
How to get started. So you know what? That is the most common question. People read about it, hear about it. They know that there's income there, but oh my gosh, where do you start? Right? And you know what? That's why I have my proven profit formula. That most of it is people getting started and deciding which strategy, because that is confusing. We got some wholesalers, but there is buy and hold, some house hackers, there's a realtor, and somebody scaling. So there you go. That's who we have on the call. Now let's see. There. Nope. Let me get this poll off. There you go. Now we're back to Hadley and me. So I'm going to get going. So here's what I want to know. Why do you call it hard money? It sounds hard to me. What is it? Where did that come from?
It's funny because when you sent that to me, I never realized the irony, in my opinion, of that phrase. Because in comparison to conventional financing, which I find extremely laborious, I find hard money to be a much easier facet. But by definition, hard money lending means that you are creating a loan against something tangible in value. Because there's actually such a thing as soft money lending, where you're actually lending against something that is intangible. There's nothing that you can actually value against. So that's
Oh,
actually
okay.
the real definition of what hard money lending is. And
So, okay, so soft money, you mean you can't attach to a house or something. This hard
correct,
money, you're attaching it to an asset. Okay.
correct.
Ah, interesting. Did you have more to say?
Nope,
Oh,
that's
okay.
pretty much it.
That's great. I'm glad you looked it up because sometimes I think of the other way. It's hard to get, and I think people maybe get that connotation, but it really isn't hard to get. Yeah, you got to have your finances in order and your paperwork in order, but it's not hard to get if the deal is right.
Yeah, I mean, follow the definition that I just said. It's hard. The whole thing is based on the asset itself. Right at the beginning, we are asset based in our lending. The character comes after. If the numbers make sense, we'll make sure that you make sense as an investor, and then we can move forward and both make some money.
Which is really the opposite of the traditional lending. They're looking at the character and all that first, and then the
It's
assets
the
second.
exact opposite.
Yeah. So that's good to know. And I, where do the funds come from to do this?
Well, most hard money lenders typically have investors on both sides. So you have your regular real estate investor that will be putting in the money, getting the loan in order to actually get the property and do the flip or the new construction. But on the flip side, no pun intended, you also have people that are investing in the hard money lending company themselves and giving money to the lender to then push it out to get a percentage return.
Right.
Um,
So both of those, the one investing in the lender, we'll call it, they're getting a certain return and they don't have to do anything. And they're trusting their partnership with whoever that lender is that they're going to do all the dirty work and figure out the due diligence and if it's a good person to work with and all that. So they can that's the really passive person, right? Because they don't have to do anything.
Correct. They're extremely passive. And it probably is the huge distinction between what people know as private lending and hard money lending. And private lending is typically somebody that already has the funds themselves to do the lending versus the hard money where it's typically sourced from other investors.
If I look back at how I built my portfolio, actually, it was with a lot of private money. And I'll just tell you guys the truth. You ready? I was afraid of those hard money lenders, mostly because I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't realize, well, it's the same thing I'm doing with these private guys. I just was fortunate that I found one. And here's the other thing, once you find a good partner, hard money lender, private money lender, I just kept using the same guy. And he just,
Right.
we would recirculate the same money, basically, is what was happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean that's typically what happens here at Renovo Capital. I'd say 65% of our deals come from recurring clients.
Yes.
And we have a really strong loyal base where eventually you create the rapport and we understand each other. The movement, it becomes extremely fast in terms of how the money flows. And congratulations on finding a private lender. I often believe that hard money people believe is just like the mafia, right? Where it's like you think we're basically loan sharks and we're gonna come and break your legs, which is just couldn't be further from the truth. We are just any other lender, just trying to help you guys out and create some money.
Yeah, exactly. And, so that's why I'm putting this on you guys. We don't need to be afraid of these people. They actually help us.
Yeah,
But
as you can tell, I'm quite frail. So you're gonna be fine.
yeah, they're regular folks. There is one thing that I do tell people, I sometimes people say, well, I found this hard money lender on the internet that says X, Y, and Z. And I go, I prefer ones I can look in the eye because, and here's why, what I tell my investors, because if something does happen, you have a human being to deal with and not an 800 number of who knows who's going to answer the phone or, I want to have a human being on the
Yeah,
other side.
it was interesting. I was just speaking with somebody yesterday who was praying that I would do a deal for him in Florida because he did not want to deal with kind of the computerized versions of hard money lending out there in his state and the ones that do nationally in California. And
Yeah.
I said, unfortunately, I can't, but I completely understand where you're coming from, that you want a human being on the other side of the line.
Well, and I especially too, you guys know this market.
Yeah.
So when people bring deals forward, if this is where the hard money lender is located, they know the market. And you know what? They can help us as investors too, in case, we might think something will work. They might say, I don't know, you
Yeah.
know?
And the beautiful thing about Renovo is we don't charge anything on appraisals. We do it all in house. So we typically allow anybody that we're having initial conversations with to send through anything as part of a free evaluation of the property. Because at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. We want to use our expertise to help investors such as yourself, all the panelists that are here on this call, to make sure that they're making the best investment possible.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a win-win for everybody, really,
Yes.
if we work together. So now let's go into the nitty-gritty. So what criteria do you use to qualify the buyer?
Sure. So once the asset has been, resolved and we know that there's really good profit margin on that property, we go through the certification process. And it's pretty typical, as any really lender does, you do a background check. However, with some hard money lenders like Renovo Capital, we do not pull credit. So credit score is not a criteria for us in terms of understanding if you can get the job done or not. We know plenty of fix and flippers that carry a lot of their costs and are certainly in debt during a length of a project and potentially can get some sort of, pushback and get a collection agency. So we just don't believe credit score is important. In addition to that, under our normal scheme, we typically like to see 2 previous successful flips under their belt.
Okay.
Looking at that and also getting their LLC information, that's pretty much how we work. We will not do anything with their personal name. It's not because of anything other than to protect you, the investor. We just don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of having it being under your personal name and something goes horribly wrong. And we would prefer to just keep it separate from your personal.
Well, and aren't also that regulatory sort of, it's a business loan that you're doing.
Correct. We're no longer under the consumer loan business.
Right. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
So
One thing I'd love to just point out though is while I did mention the first 2 flips, what we did recently begin in last year is what we've rolled out is the Renovo Rookie Program. And so on top of the typical fee structure for a Renovo Capital loan, we also have just a flat $2,000 fee that doesn't go into our pockets. It will be funded for an advisory board you'll have during an actual flip that you found. So you'll get not only a designer that will be there whenever you need them, but also a contractor, not that you're hiring for the job, but simply making sure that steps are being taken, permits are pulled, and any advice that you might need along the way. And so that has now relinquished the criteria for those 2 previous flips.
Oh, okay. So instead, you can go into the rookie program, pay the extra 2,000, but really you're getting consulting for that. That's going to help you because anybody who's a brand new flipper is going to have a lot of questions,
A lot of questions.
lot of questions, and stuff happens.
Yes.
And I like the contractor part because one of the main things I see happen is things get out of order when
Yep.
there's, the contractors get out of order and then something's not done and the next guy's there. And that can really, this is time is money ordeal and that messes up your schedule. And if you've never done it, it's hard to put it in order.
Yes. And in fact, that is exactly what happened with our first rookie, where he was going to do painting kind of in the beginning steps of his flip. And we immediately said, no, that should be one of your last steps. You don't want any of the heavy appliances coming through and scraping through the new paint job that you've just done. Seems obvious, but when you're thick, when you're thick into a project, you're starting to not really see exactly what should be done in terms of your vision. So it's always nice to have those checks and balances.
It is. That sounds really great. So basically you're saying just because you're new, you're not ruled out. You could do it that way. But again, we're back to the deal parameters have to work.
Correct.
And they have to work where it's really about risk. And, if it's super tight, it's probably not going to work. Right?
Yes.
That,
And from our loan perspective, we break down every single line item to make sure that we understand the profit margin, not only from our financing perspective, but also building into the sales commissions, building in holding costs that need to be paid. We want to make sure that at the end of the day, every single dollar amount that's going into this property will funnel out in as a form of a profit.
Okay, I think we answered your question there, Alex, because he's asking what is the process or things we need to provide to borrow this hard money after they find a deal. And really, it's the paperwork, the standard loan paperwork, right?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of getting the process going, we'll need to understand the deal. You'll give us essentially the purchase price, improvement costs, ARV, total square footage once finished, total beds once finished, total baths once finished, total garages. That's it. From there, we do our internal analysis where we'll pull a CMA, which is a comparative market analysis, of all sales within the past year within a quarter-mile distance of that house.
Okay, you go a quarter mile.
We go a quarter mile if possible. Obviously, sometimes that's not always doable. So we'll go out. We typically like to stay under 3/4 of a mile for our comps.
Okay, unless you can't find
So
one.
once that's done, on the flip side of that, for certification purposes, I love it. My family is joining, and I sent them.
I'm like, who do we have here?
I sent them the link, and I didn't realize it was all Hadley Hornig.
Oh, you know what? You sent. Oh, okay. They have They have a participant link, not.
Gotcha.
They have a speaker link. So let me see.
That is hilarious. I love
That's
it.
it. Who do we have? Is this Dad?
That's Dad. That's Steve Hornig right there.
Hi, you guys. We got a celebrity on here. Hi, Dad. How great that you came on. Thank you for taking the time. I'm going to somehow I see if I can make you a participant. I don't know if I can. And I can't. Let's see here. We can't hear you though because you're
muted.
I was muted. Don't worry about it. I'll be quiet and just listen.
But you're going to be in the picture is the darn thing. Let me.
Oh, you want me to just get off and just get back on without video?
If you just mute yourself in the video, you'll be good.
Okay.
Yeah, mute the video. There you go. Then you can stay. There you go. We're good with that.
All right.
All right. So this is friends and family down here, guys. That's so great.
So we nailed the deal part. On the certification part, full process, I'll list it out one more time. We'll need your LLC docs. We'll need a background authorization form so that we can pull your, previous history. We'll also need your 2 previous flips. We'll need addresses, basically kind of the improvements that you made, just so that we can understand quality of work. And then depending on if you have a long LLC, we like seeing the assets income statements on those as well. But if it's new, that's totally fine. We typically will then ask for your 2 recent tax returns. And that's pretty much it. From there, we have everything we need to ascertain if the asset's good, if the person's good, and then we're moving on to closing.
Okay, good. We answered you, Alex. So now here's the big question. Interest rates. We know they're higher. I mean, they have to be, but how high?
Right. So for a hard money lender, you're typically going to be looking from anywhere from 8%, probably all the way up to 16%. I've even seen some people do 20%. Now, those are typically for people that are in very weird niches of investments. But you're probably going to most likely look between that 8 to 14% range. For Renovo Capital, we are sitting at 9 to 12%. Now, I know that these percentages sound huge, but you also have to remember that this is on a maturity of only 8 months or 11 months if it's new construction. So whereas you're thinking, holy smokes, 30 years, 9%, that's a
Yeah,
crazy amount. That's not at all what's happening. And it's actually a smaller portion than you would imagine at that higher percentage rate.
Oh, I bet your dad could. I bought a lot of real estate when the interest rate was 18%. That's from the bank.
Wow.
And it didn't matter. And I know your dad can attest to this too. This back in the 80s, right? Or early 90s. It didn't matter. It still cash flowed. And,
Right.
it's all about the formula anyway.
Correct.
So, and whatever percent you are. Okay. So then what about the points? Then besides the interest rate, there's points on the loan, and
Correct.
describe what's the points and how does that work?
The point of the points is to make sure that we as a hard money lender are getting paid for the service, right? So that's basically just covering the cost of us doing the loan. And so typically you're going to look at an origination fee from a hard money lender anywhere from 1 point probably up to 5.
Right.
And that normally depends on what your loan to ARV or after repair value is on the property.
Okay, so if you put a bunch of money, or we call it skin in the game, if you have part of the money, that will help lower your points.
Points or interest rate, it depends. It depends on the hard money lender you're working with.
Okay, and if it's a regular customer and they already did 3 deals, do they get a discount on the points after a while, or?
So instead of doing a discount on the points, we do a small discount on the interest rate.
Okay.
And then we also raise the loan to ARV they're able to qualify for.
Oh, sure, because you have experience and
Correct.
Okay. Now you made me think of another question though. When you said what is the normal loan to ARV that is acceptable for you guys?
Sure. So for Renovo Capital, for a first-time customer, we're going to go from 55 up to 65% loan to ARV. Okay. If you've done 2 successful deals with us, or you've had extensive experience elsewhere, then we will consider doing 70% loan to ARV.
Okay, so that's more cautious than some lenders I know.
Correct.
But it's what it's what works for you guys, right?
A major difference with us, and the reason why that is twofold. One, we're one of the few lenders that offer no monthly payments during the length of the loan.
Oh, okay. You made up for it right there.
So in effect, during the length of the loan, your loan to ARV is actually increasing to what is typical levels around 73, 75%. Additionally, one other thing that we do here at Renovo Capital, I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. And dang it, I've now forgotten.
You were talking about the 2 things, the no monthly payments during the loan.
Right. And so there's one other, is that we, unlike most hard money lenders, we do advancement of funds as opposed to a reimbursement of funds during the construction process.
Okay.
So instead of a typical lender in a construction loan where you're coming up with the funds for labor and supplies, at closing, when you bring forth the down payment, we will immediately give you cash back to start the process of the construction. You then send us receipts, and we will then send forth more money for you to continue on the project. So that is the major difference of why our loan to ARV is so much lower.
So you get a front end draw basically to work off of.
Correct.
To get your supplies, and the horrible price of lumber right now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so now how fast can you fund a deal? They brought you all the proper papers and the deal works. How long does that take?
So I've been at Renovo since January of 2020. The fastest I've seen is 16 hours. Now that's crazy quick. We got everything we needed for certification. The deal worked tremendously well. And luckily they used our preferred title company. So we knew that we could get all of the documents ready to go and move as quickly as possible. but I'd say typically for a hard money lender, you're probably looking at 3 to 5 business days.
And that's a good turn right there.
It's quicker than conventional, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. And then how long do these loans last? You said 8 months earlier. That's really the typical amount of time you get.
Correct. So for a fix and flip loan, you're probably for any hard money lender, you're going to be looking at less than a year for a residential single family. For new construction, we typically go up to 11 months, and some lenders will do up to a year and a half. But for us, it's 11 months.
Okay, and then I think I asked the nasty question later. So then, so we're not making any monthly interest payments. We're just we get this amount, and then we get even the draw to do our rehab or whatever. And at the very end, we're going to pay you off, it plus the interest plus all the fees and da da da.
Correct. Right at closing, you're going to give us the origination fee, fees associated to the title company, and anything additional that wasn't covered in our initial purchase loan. From there, like you said, you will immediately get cash back to start the construction on the property. And as you send through receipts, we will continue to advance funds.
Okay. And then what if I get done in 4 months and not 8 months?
Well, so I have heard of some hard money lenders doing prepayment penalties, but at Renovo Capital, we do not. So honestly, the faster you get it done, the better for everybody, because we believe that brings more profit to you, which means you want to do another flip, which means you're going to come back to us. So to us, we highly encourage that you guys can get the deal done as quickly as possible.
Okay. But I know someone else who used some hard money because they were making monthly payments, getting done earlier, then they didn't have to make any more payments, but you still owe the same amount of interest. You still owe the same amount of fees. You're just, like you said, the circle can go faster.
Correct. Okay. It's funny that you just mentioned that. We actually get quite a bit of business from other hard money loans, where at certain points during their loan, the monthly payments have become too much of a burden that they've then come over to Renovo Capital. We've refinanced them out of the other hard money loan, and then they can continue on doing their deal with no monthly payments.
That makes sense, because if you have to have the monthly payments and you're doing it the other way, funding the rehab besides, it can all of a sudden you're out of cash.
Correct.
To do the rehab. Yeah. Especially when they raise the lumber prices, right?
Right. Exactly.
Well, all the prices right now. Okay. So, and you did tell us already the loan to value that you'll lend on.
Yep.
And okay. And how much money does the investor need? Let's just use some real fake numbers here. But if, I still have to bring a certain amount to the table. So if the project, give us a sample here.
Sure. So I have this nifty little project analysis worksheet. So let's just plug in some numbers and see what happens.
Okay. And you do have the privilege to share screen if you want.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. So if you want to, then you can show us what you're talking about.
Okay. I like that idea. Let's just make sure that I put in numbers where the deal works. That would be a good idea, right? Okay. So I can share screen.
And then you have to pick which one you have it up on. I'll tell you when I see it.
Can you see it now?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So this is an example, and this tool, if anybody after this panel wishes to have this, more than happy to send this out. And it's a really nice tool to just really help you understand kind of how numbers work. Even if you don't want to use our numbers, you can just simply change the interest rates, points, however you want. But in this particular example, we have a purchase price of $200,000, improvement cost of $35,000, and an estimated sale price or after repair value of $300,000.
Okay.
So what this tool does is it will then auto-generate across our 3 options for a first-time buyer of 55 up to 65% loan to ARV. And so going through this, you can see that 300,000, as we mentioned earlier, you take that, and that becomes the loan amount of $195,000 will be your total loan amount. Renovo Capital will always, because we are an advancement of funds, we will always cover 100% of the improvement costs on your loan first. So we have this $39,400. The reason why it is not $35,000 exactly is because we're also covering property taxes and insurance during the length of the loan. So that's why it's a little bit more than the $35,000. You take that 39, you subtract it from that 195, and now you have your purchase loan. So from there, you have the loan, which then factors into the down payment. We take an estimated cash at close right here. So you'd say on this deal, you'd need $52,249 to close. But again, that comes with the territory of not having to come up with any more money post-closing other than holding costs of the property, because we'll be advancing funds during the length of the loan.
Right. And when you say holding costs, we're talking about we still got to pay the heat bill and that type of thing while we have the property.
Utilities, lawn care, whatever is needed to uphold the maintenance of the property. And so again, this nifty tool will then showcase selling costs. So we have right here selling costs that basically breaks down, like I said, more money to the title company, seller commissions, things of that nature. And going through the line, seeing how things work out, this deal, as we've presently constituted, will bring an estimated profit of nearly $20,000.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for sharing that. And actually, if you provide me is there a link or a place that this lives, or?
It's not a link, but can I send you an attachment after? Would that work?
Yes. And
Okay.
then I'll figure out how to attach it, because it's a great illustration. I like that. Okay, now you have to put stop share. There you go. Perfect. So that helped me to see. Now I want to know where I can find that $200,000 house here in the Twin Cities, because it's kind of tough right now. You know, the numbers don't seem to be that. And what I do know, working with a lot of fix and flippers, the house might cost you. Well, I was looking at one today. It was $335 to buy it. They said 30,000 rehab. I think more like 60,000 rehab.
Sure.
But you know, to me, the numbers didn't work. It was from a wholesaler, and I didn't even send it out because I can tell the numbers don't work.
Right.
You do got to know the numbers.
And that's why it helps to have people like LeAnn Riley and myself, who are market experts here, and will hopefully, prevent you from going down a disaster. And that is why we build tools like this, is for people to understand all the way from front to end what the end game profit is on that property. And we find it extremely helpful, and I hope that it gives great advice to our fellow investors.
And that is, you better, if you're, it's not for the just getting started guy fix and flipping. It just really, you need help. Believe me. It's so many variables have to come together for it to all work. And the first one is you have to buy it with enough room.
Yes.
So these draws that we're going to get along the way, is there a number that we can, like I think on that example, it was 39,000 or something on and if you've got some to start with, just as you go along, when you burn that first amount up, then you get a draw.
Yeah. So from our standpoint, from a deal like that, you're probably looking at 4 draws. Close to 10 grand every draw. So at closing, you bring us that 52. We'll then not reimburse, but we'll then advance you $10,000 to start the project. And as you showcase the receipt that the $10,000 has gone towards the property, we'll then fund you an additional $10,000.
Okay, got it. And
now,
so
one other thing I want to bring up, LeAnn, just apologies, but one other thing I want to bring up is that 52,000. I'm sure for some people on here that seems like a lot of money. I just want to bring up 2 more things that Renovo Capital does that's pretty unique. One, we do allow for secondary financing. So if you found a deal that was good enough, but you didn't want to produce 52 grand, we do allow somebody else to come in and supply that 52 grand on your behalf. So if you have a private lender or another hard money lender that's willing to fork up that money, that's totally fine. And we allow that to happen as long as we are in first position. Okay.
So you could
Secondly,
even have a partner then who might.
correct. Correct. You could also just have a partner that brings in the cash. Exactly right.
That's unique.
And then one other thing that we do is I saw somebody in here saying that they wanted to scale their business. Perhaps they have some rental properties already. One thing that we can do is take the equity placement that you have in your other investment properties and utilize that as collateral to reduce your down payment. So if you had $100,000 as an example in equity in a duplex, triplex, commercial property, we could then use those funds to then offshoot the down payment requirement.
I did that a lot of times, you guys. As I grew my portfolio, that was one of the ways you could scale. Exactly. Leverage something you already have without really taking the money out.
Exactly right. And again, just follow suit of why we are a hard money lender. We will look at anything that is a hard asset. Exactly right.
Okay, so now if the borrower needs less money, say they have 80 grand of their own, but they only need 30 or something to close the gap, does that happen? I suppose the points are less because you're borrowing less money, or no?
Can you repeat the question again?
What if the person, they have most of it to do this deal, but they're short, a smaller amount, not like the whole rehab and the everything. They're going to fund the rehab themselves, but they just, they're short 30 or 40 or 50 grand or something.
Yeah. It's called gap funding for a reason, right? So, from that standpoint, if you just need an additional 30,000, again, bring in a secondary financier. It's totally fine. The rates and fees will definitely be higher.
Yeah.
Not going to sugarcoat it. They are taking a lot of risk by being in second position in a financing world, which basically means they could lose their money entirely if things go wrong. So typically you're looking at probably 6 points and 16%.
Okay.
But again, you're looking at that from 30,000. So you always have to think about it from that standpoint that it's not too much money when it's a smaller gap of funding that's coming from that second financier.
Yeah. Okay. And then, how about the new construction? How is that different?
I'd say we're at Renovo Capital and pretty much most lenders, they're a little bit more cautious on putting up 70% loan to ARV.
Okay.
From our standpoint, unless, we have good rapport, we'll typically come in around 60% as our max loan. And it also depends on the size. But it becomes a little bit more cautionary. The loan structure stays essentially the same in terms of rates and fees at Renovo Capital. We just changed the loan maturity date from 8 months to 11 months.
So what you were just talking about, if someone had a whole bunch of home equity, a couple $100 grand, and they were flipping a lot, they could actually use that home equity in there somewhere.
Correct. I just want to make sure that it is not their primary residence. We unfortunately cannot accept equity from their primary home.
Okay.
Vacation property, investment property, totally fine. But if it's their primary home, we will not do that.
Okay. I'm glad I got that clear. See, you guys, I know the questions to ask, and that's where sometimes you have a lot of trouble if you don't understand this. You don't know what questions to ask him. Okay, so, you already covered this. You don't do full appraisals. You just have in-house. You guys are, enough to figure out if you want to do the deal or not, just from your own comping and
And it's interesting. We, again, getting business from other hard money lenders from time to time, they have that system, right, where they do an initial breakdown of what the loan could look like, barring an appraisal. And what we do is you'll send us the deal, all the criteria that I mentioned earlier, and within 24 hours, we will send you our committed loan. That is the number that we're going to move forward with. It's not going to change. And you can be certain that that's the number that you'll go with if you go to close with us.
And I have seen some deals where the appraisal kind of crashed it. The numbers all worked. And actually, once the project was done, we blew that appraisal by 60 grand. But, it was just so conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And now here's the dirty part. Okay, 8 months are up. They're not done with the house or something happened. Now, how is that handled?
Yes. So I do want to make sure that I answer Kent's question on the panel, if that's okay.
Oh, okay.
He's asking if you can use 1031 money. If
Oh.
it's a like kind of, absolutely, that's not a problem at all. You need to make sure that it's obviously the same property, but you're going to own this property. So it is not something that we're going to hold on to. Just make sure that you talk to a lawyer that handles 1031 exchanges, but it is something that we've done from time to time.
Yeah, you're not going to flip the property, you're keeping it.
Correct.
Yeah, then you can.
Right, correct.
But you probably can't keep it as a primary residence, only as an investment, or it wouldn't make the 1031 rules.
Yep.
Okay, now back to those penalties.
Right.
What happens? It's happened, I'm sure.
So as everybody's learned, we do not have junk fees such as an appraisal fee and things like that. But we do have an extension fee of 1 point. It occurs on any loan and it's automatic. You're given an additional 3 months to finish the project. That also will stop the no monthly payments, just to be fully transparent. So you will have to start making monthly payments after that 8-month time period. You're given one more 1.3-month extension after the 3 months. And let's just end it with saying, hopefully nobody's in that position.
Hopefully not. And
then a lender just becomes a lender, and it's obviously just not an ideal situation for anybody.
No, it's not. But we all know it happens, but I like that. There's an option. There's a, way to, hopefully you better in 3 months be able to handle whatever the issue was.
Right. Exactly right. And I just want to make it clear, from Renovo Capital standpoint, we are not flippers. We are lenders. We do not want to get the house back. That is our last priority. We want you to succeed and for you to become a loyal customer of Renovo Capital. That is what we want. We want to create a great experience for you and succeed in this business. So the last thing we want to do is take it back. Right. So we will try and do whatever it is possible to make sure that we can make that happen.
And I would assume from what you said, you're collaborative. You're going to go out there and take a look at the project and give some ideas and suggestions of this is what you need to do to get it over there.
Correct. If you're in the rookie program, that is correct. If you're not, then we hope that you have the expertise already to
get some help,
make the right decision.
And then has this happened? What if they're all done, the house is for sale, and then it doesn't sell for what they thought, or and now what?
Well, it certainly hasn't happened recently.
Yeah.
in this crazy market. From that standpoint, if it's finished and we think it looks good, we'll typically extend no points and still no monthly payments and just kind of wait until it gets sold.
Yeah.
So that typically depends on where you're at in the pacing of the project.
It seems to me your margins are good enough. That's rarely going to happen because you're not lending 80% or a tight part.
Correct. At the end of the day, you have some skin in the game as much as we do. So we feel that if you can hang on longer, we can also hang on longer, and that's kind of how we operate here at Renovo.
And what have you seen go wrong in your dealings with investors?
I'd say the two is the basement. The basement is typically where right now you can create a lot of value, but it's sometimes, I mean, literally a mystery box. We've had problems with flooding, problems with water damage that's still seeping through, even though they've basically tried to finish the basement. I'd say that that's been probably the most troublesome part of a house that I've seen. In terms of just hard money lending in general, it comes down to trust. Like I said, I started in 2020, and anecdotally, I had a client that told me that he was way ahead of where our inspector told us, and I trusted him and believed that he was way ahead of schedule. And unfortunately, he was not. I should have trusted our inspector, and it's turned into, unfortunately, kind of a nightmare. And it's a learning experience for me in the industry for sure. And in those situations, it just comes down to, again, we're not out to screw anybody. We're trying to figure out the best possible solution. So for that, we offered him the option to just hand over the deed, and we would give him back his down payment, as part of kind of how we
and then
figure out
you
getting out
can
of that
solve
mess.
it.
Yes, exactly right.
Okay, and then if someone wants to get set up with you for funding, what should they do?
So I believe you're going to send out my email or something along that.
I at the end of this, I'm going to show you his phone number, and it'll be on there for anybody who watches. It'll be on there. So really, just reach out.
Yeah, I would say I would say call me first. Would love to get to know you as an investor, what you're trying to accomplish, and from there I can start you down the certification process, or we can look at a free valuation. Whatever suits your needs, I'm here to help.
Cool. Okay, and do you have investment property?
I do. Well, as I mentioned, I am currently house hacking, and I recently just made a purchase in Wyzetta, single family. So I'll be moving out of here, but keeping this. And also, my brother, who also is named Hadley on this on this Zoom call, he and I and my sister own a few multifamily here in Uptown Minneapolis. We own about 30 doors.
And who manages them? The company, right?
Well, if you want to bring him on, it's actually Win Hornig, who's one of the Hadleys up here as a participant. He runs Right Move Properties, and he manages those properties for us.
So then let's talk a little bit Uptown is interesting because, they got the brunt of some of the crime and things that happened, the destruction.
Yeah.
So we're in the end of a pandemic here, and the eviction moratorium is on. What are you seeing for the future of hard money lending?
Well, so right now, hard money lending, I think we have more investors than we've ever seen before. I think flipping has become more and more of an avenue for a lot of people. The problem is that the inventory has either stayed the same or even decreased, mostly because of the eviction and foreclosure moratorium. That's a large chunk of where investors typically find those discounted buildings and projects. So my thinking in the future is not to sound like we're taking advantage of poor situations, right? But I think a lot of lenders and investors are kind of licking their chops right now, waiting for the moratoriums to cease, because there's going to be plenty of opportunity once those lapse.
Yeah, once both the eviction and the forbearance stuff, once this all kind of shakes down, let's call it.
Right. Exactly. And so, we're pretty steady. COVID was obviously really challenging for most hard money lenders. In fact, two of them here in Minnesota went out of business. But it was slow to start, but we've recently kind of just gone back to normal numbers. But we think it's going to absolutely peak probably in 2022, 2023, whenever things start to lapse and we go back to reality.
Kent says he didn't know what house hacking is.
Oh, well, Kent, house hacking is typically when you're looking at a 1 to 4 unit building where you can take advantage of conventional financing and you move into one of those units and essentially live rent free is essentially what house hacking is. There are many ways in which you can do it. Just so that you're aware, FHA, which is a HUD loan, that funds up to 4 units. So you could use FHA financing. You can use low down payment conventional financing, depending on your credit score. And it's just a really easy way to get started in the buy and hold sphere if you're planning on holding onto the property and living very low, if not paying nothing in your mortgage because other people are paying it for you.
I have one more question here from Amy, and it's really about, I'm just starting out. I've read several books, listened to podcasts. Isn't that where everybody starts? To gain more knowledge, and notice that all podcasts and books say get a mentor or recommend their own courses, of course. How do I know which are worth my money and which are not? Well, I can answer that because you really have to check out that coach, mentor, person and make sure that whatever strategy they're teaching is exactly the strategy that you want to learn, because there's wholesaling coaches and they're in every venue, and people don't realize there's 10 or 15 strategies for real estate investing. You have to find a coach that is the right for you. And also what's different about my proven profit formula, yes, I have online training and videos and all that, but the unique part is you actually get group coaching with me. So I'm there helping you, because every week people have troubles as they're going along with their fix and flip or their buy and hold strategy or their tenants or whatever. That's the key. I myself hire a lot of coaches. It's the ones who I have some sort of access to that person for when I need them for the trouble. But really, I am a certified master coach. That's like for over 20 years, but I belong to many coaching programs. That's how I live my best life, because I hire coaches to hold me accountable and keep me really at my top. Otherwise, I get lazy. I mean, that's human nature, folks. So I hope that answered. Amy, here at the end, I'm going to give, you can get a free strategy session with me. So first I'm going to actually share screen and put up that. And then I'm going to give you Hadley's information here. Okay. So anybody can have a free strategy session with me. And you can go to LeAnnRiley.com and you'll find a button to push to get it. Otherwise, there's a long link on here, and I think Jeannie's putting it in the chat box. So, and then I'll just chat with you just like Hadley does, and we'll see where you're at and where do you want to go. And lots of people call me for Minnesota real estate, obviously, because I have a team of investment property realtors. So if you need help there, then you set up a strategy session and I'll line you up with one of my people. And we get investing.
Yeah. I think, just to piggyback off of that, there are times where I realize that hard money is not going to be the best tool for some of the people that I talk to. And I myself am well versed in creative financing in other areas than just hard money lending. And so if we find that it's not the right way to go, more than happy to I love real estate. So I'm more than happy to spend an additional 5-10 minutes to talk about what other strategies might be available to you in the financing world to make things happen. And to Amy, it was Amy, right?
Yeah.
Or
Amy.
To Amy, I would just say, read books, get a mentor, but then do it.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Do it. Like my dad will be so happy if I bring this up. My grandma, Grandma Ernie, used to say all the time when I would be like, I'm not sure, she'd be like, nonsense, you can do it. And so just get out there and get it done. The best, even if you don't make any money, you're going to become rich in experience. There's so much you can learn during investing in real estate. And I guarantee you, if you just start it, you'll find it to be extremely rewarding, both now and long term.
Absolutely. We got one more question from Alex. Is borrowing for a buy and hold rental different than new construction or flips?
So for hard money, the whole point of hard money is that there's going to be value created with the loan. There is a lot of, as you know, there's a big interest rate and there's a big fee attached to a hard money loan. So for buy and hold specifically, I would typically, I'm going to say it 1,000 times. So for that, I would highly recommend that if you have value add, if you're going to put in and turn all the apartment units and make it really nice, put in 50,000, it all of a sudden creates 200,000 in value. Let's have a conversation. For hard money lenders like ourselves, we do 2 to 3 years at a slightly lower percentage interest for those types of buy and holds.
Do you?
Now, yes, we do. So we only.
I didn't know that, you guys. I didn't know that, because I do have people who do exactly that, and yeah, they got to fund the whole thing, and yeah.
Yeah, so we do absolutely on the long-term 2 to 3 year deals. Now, because it's a longer tail and you're going to be receiving monthly payments from your tenants, we expect the same. So the no monthly payments years off, but it is something that we do, and it really is only a viable option if. So there's 2 reasons why you do it. 1, you're building value, or 2, you don't have time for regular appraisal. If you really think this is a steal, but you cannot get the appraisal in time for the closing, then you would probably use hard money lending. But I would highly push you to try and find a commercial bank that would fund it for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's where, yeah, for sure. I think I had this in here. I believe that, buy and hold is the ultimate path to passive income. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's in my blood at this point. So yes, I do. I have a friend that works for Coinbase out in San Francisco, and he's really pushing and thinking that the way of passive income might be through digital currency syndication. Now, I think syndication has its pros and cons. On the one hand, you're truly a passive investor, but on the offhand, you're not making as much money on your investment. Not nearly as much as you would both in equity as well as in your cash on cash return eventually. So I don't know. I think it all depends on what your work ethic is and what you want passive income to look like for you. Is it truly passive, or do you want to take a little bit more active role in it?
One more last thing I'm thinking of is what if someone happens to have a bunch of money laying around and would want to become part of, a funder for your, do they call you?
So I know I've said that I am a hard money lender, and we are, but we only have one source that provides our funds. So in terms of funding our cause, it would not be somebody that you'd reach out to. But there are plenty of others here in Minneapolis.
Yes, there is.
I would recommend reaching out to CCM Finance as well as Pine Financial would be the two that I would recommend if you were looking to try and get on the funding side rather than the project investor side.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Well, we're after our finished time. Thank you, Hadley, so much for joining us and informing us. I learned some things, which is really great, because that's why I have these experts, to really keep on top of what's going on. And it does change. And you have a lot of different programs that could work. So I know I'll be sending some folks over, and you guys all know how to get in touch with Hadley now. So hopefully you'll get some calls. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you, LeAnn, and thank you all for joining. Please pick up the phone, give me a call. Would be more than happy to chat with you and see how I can help.
Okay. And bye to Dad, too.
That's right. Hadley.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, LeAnn.
Bye.